Wagwan people. Alright, it is now 25 years of Mortal Kombat. 25 years since Mortal Kombat 1 was released in the arcades, and that's been celebrated by Ed Boon and the entire Mortal Kombat team, and rightfully so. Because 25 years is a long time, and there's certainly been a lot happening with Mortal Kombat in the last 25 years. So I thought it'd be a cool idea to come here and talk a little bit about my own personal story, my own personal history and experience with Mortal Kombat from 25 years ago. I remember playing it on the arcades, and yeah, so let's talk about it. So let me say this first of all. Let me start with this. So Street Fighter was out before Mortal Kombat, as I'm sure most of you guys know, and Street Fighter came out. The first Street Fighter was, I believe, 88 or 89. No, it was 87, I think. It was late 80s. But anyway, it didn't really become popular until maybe about 89, 90, 90, 91 ish is when it became really popular with Street Fighter 2. That blew up in the arcades. I remember playing that a lot in the arcades, and I remember bunking off school to play Street Fighter 2. But yeah, that's what we did, play Street Fighter a lot in the arcades, on the Super NES, had it on the Super NES as well, and it was pretty much the game of my youth. And then Mortal Kombat was released, and Mortal Kombat came out, in 1992. And when that came out, Street Fighter, it didn't die. Clearly, it's still around, but it did take a massive hit when Mortal Kombat came out, at least in my part of the world. So I remember going to the arcades and seeing just the massive queues that Mortal Kombat had, and there were other arcades, other games, even including Street Fighter that were available and ready to play. And you see maybe a few people here and there playing some of those, but the queue for Mortal Kombat was long, and it went all outside the arcade shop, all the way down the road. You'll see massive queues. You think it was like a rock concert or something, you know what I mean? The queues were huge for this, and you also see people crowded around the machine. If you weren't playing, you're trying to watch the people play, the very first Let's Plays, if you will. You know what I mean? Just watching people play, crowd around the arcade machine. And you'd always get somebody, not just with Mortal Kombat, by the way, but just with arcades in general. You got people watching people play. We just get somebody who's not playing, right? And they'll be watching, but they'll stick their head in front of the person playing. And you're like, dude, come on, I'm trying to play this game. I'm pretty sure you want to watch, but don't put your head in front of me. You know what I mean? Watch from behind. Don't watch from in front. But you get people do that and stick their head right in front of you. You're like, come on, man. And then if you get hit, and it's like, oh, jeez, man. You're like making me lose points, lose health. Like, what the hell, man? Move your rascal head, man. What's the matter with you? You know what I mean? But yeah, it was big, man. It was big. So Mortal Kombat, and it just blew up. I mean, and just the graphics of it was amazing. Like, at the time, I don't know if this was the first game to do this, but certainly the first game that I know of to do this, where you had motion capture in the game, and you had like these sort of photographs or sort of images that were animated of real people, that were animated to make these fight moves and kicks and jumps and stuff. And when you're playing the game, to our eyes back then, it looked like you were playing a movie, you know what I mean? It looked like, whoa, this is like a movie that you're playing, and you got people, and they're like throwing fire out their hands and spears, and doing fly kicks, and just throwing spears in people's heads, and like, get over here, the classic move, the freeze that Sub-Zero did, and then punching them, and when he did finish, he punched in his shatter apart, and he had Kano who'd rip your heart out. That was an awesome move. Oh, Kano, man. My favorite character though was Scorpion though, mainly because I think it was the first character I played as, and it was the first character I figured out how to do the moves, and the first character I believe that I won any sort of matches with. I remember playing one guy, and I just kept spamming the spear and then the uppercut. That was my move, the spear, get over here, uppercut, spear, get over here, uppercut. Was that down punch, uppercut, back, was it back, forward punch? I think it was was it back, forward punch or back, punch? I can't remember, but I think it was back, forward punch, and they did a spear. It was like, get over here. But that was my move, man. That was my move. I had to spam that move and I beat this guy. But there's, plenty of times I got my arse whipped on Mortal Kombat, for real, man. I was no expert at that game, definitely. Another thing that was really cool about Mortal Kombat as well, and again, I don't know if this is the first game to do it, but the first game that I know of to do this, because arcades in general, like, you didn't always have a move list readily available. You might have some basic moves on the top of the cabinet, sometimes something on the side, but you generally didn't have like a long list. Like, you go into most games and you go in the options menus or whatever, and you got like an entire long list of every single move for every single character. You didn't get up with the arcades, right? It was just it's just what it was. You just got what you got. So, but figuring out the basic special moves, could usually do that for the most part. And if you talk to a few people, a lot of people seem to know because you experiment a lot. But when it came to the finishing moves, these were like the stuff of legends. I mean, yeah, nowadays you just go online and it's there. But back in 1992, when this game was coming out, these things were like passed down through like bloodlines. You know what I mean? Like the royal family, only certain people get it. It was like you didn't see them very often because not many people knew how to do them. And I remember, like, I believe it was the first time I saw a finishing move. Again, it was a long time ago, like 25 years ago, right? So, well, what I seem to remember is, getting my ass kicked by some guy, and then him pulling off a finishing move. I don't remember what the finishing move was, but I just remember watching it and just thinking, whoa. You know what I mean? Because usually when you get to that screen, even if you got beat, or if I beat somebody, nobody need a finishing move. So it's like, you might give him a punch or a tap. We might, wiggle around with the joystick, the control stick, and the buttons, and see what happens. And then usually nothing, right? Just end up like back, up, down. You weren't really doing anything. Down, 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 up, and there's like nothing really happening. Or it's like, oh, do this, try that. And you try to do some stuff, and it's like some guys like, oh yeah, I heard it's this. I heard you go back, forward, and you try all that stuff, and then nothing's happening. So like you didn't really see them, and then eventually it's like you got beat, and somebody pulls up a finishing move, and it's like, whoa. You know what I mean? Because not only did you get your ass whooped, the guy just put the finishing move in it. The guy put, as they say nowadays, the guy put the finesse on it. So it was definitely you know what I mean? Not much you could say to that. But yeah, man, Mortal Kombat over the years. So I played Mortal Kombat on the Super NES. I remember that caused a bit of issue because they took the blood out. And I remember people were pissed off at Nintendo for that. I believe the blood was on the Sega Mega Drive version, but it definitely wasn't on the Super NES version. That's one that we had. I remember playing a little bit on the Super NES. It was alright. It was still a good game, of course. It was Mortal Kombat, but the blood's definitely, I think with a game like Mortal Kombat, the blood and the gore and everything else about it's kind of what that whole thing is what the game is based on. Is like you take that out and you're missing the very core components of the game. So yeah, it was still a cool game. It was just, you know what I mean, you want the blood in there. But I think after that I didn't play a Mortal Kombat game until Mortal Kombat 4 on the Nintendo 64. And that was awesome. I remember the Quan Chi's finishing move where you rip the guy's leg off and beat him to death with it. But here's the thing with Mortal Kombat 4 and that they did is that they made the finishing moves, like you could do them properly. There was a proper way to do moves where you order up, downs, whatever. There was a proper way to do the moves. But they had an option where you could turn on where it makes the finishing moves super easy, where all you had to do was press down and punch. And it didn't matter where you were standing, how close you were, how far you were, just press down and punch and you pull off the finishing move. And I used that a few times, more than a few times, to be fair. But yeah, it did kind of take away that whole thing about. In fact, I'll say it's even the whole internet thing about now you can find special finishing moves so easily. It kind of take away that whole thing about it being special that. I don't know how people found out the finishing moves. I guess you knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and they just had to get good at the game as well. But it kind of took that whole thing away where it's like, well, now anybody can do it, anybody can find it, and it did kind of lose something. But hey, I mean, there were still great games. I played a few more Kombat games after 4. I think it was I can't remember. I think it was the one. I think it's Deception on the GameCube. I think Deception was the game. I can't remember. I think it was Mortal Kombat Deception. And I played Mortal Kombat, a little bit of Mortal Kombat 10. I couldn't really get into 10 too much. I played, but I think it was Deception that had the sort of the story modes and that whole thing, which was alright. It was pretty cool. Kind of like an RPG type mode almost. But yeah, 10 I downloaded it. I remember it was free on PlayStation 4, so PlayStation 3, and I got that, but I just couldn't get into it. So I haven't really played that kind of since. I kind of drifted out of fighting games for a long time, but yeah. Also, Mortal Kombat, the TV series. They had a Mortal Kombat TV series back in the 90s. It was called Mortal Kombat Conquest. I remember we used to watch that quite a lot, and that was it wasn't good. It was just barely possible, but it was like it was you had like these so over the top characters. It was kind of like Xena, Xena or Hercules. If you remember Hercules of the time, like Xena Warrior Princess, it was kind of like that, but with Mortal Kombat characters. And then it had the Mortal Kombat movies, of course. Mortal Kombat, they were fantastic. I mean, they were terrible, but they were fantastic. But you have Mortal Kombat and then Mortal Kombat 2 Annihilation. Here's the thing that pissed me off about Annihilation, though, is that because in the movies, Johnny Cage was my favorite character, right? And then in the movies, in the second movie, they killed him off in like the first 5 minutes or so. And I was like, what? How can you kill off Johnny Cage, man? He was the best one there. He had like, he did like the fly kick and, no, not the fly kick. He did like the split kick. And then, you punch him in the balls. And there's like that scene where he punches Goro in the balls. Yeah, they don't go too well. There was a Mortal Kombat web series as well with Michael J. White. That was pretty cool, actually. I remember I don't think I watched the whole thing, actually. I did watch the first episode. But I remember it being pretty cool. But so yeah, I ended up not watching the whole thing in the end for one reason or other. I don't remember. I should look that up and see what that's about. But yeah, Mortal Kombat, man, they've done so much over the years. They've had, 25 years and it's still going. And even though I'm not playing it so much these days, it's still going pretty damn strong. There's loads of Mortal Kombat games, loads of Mortal Kombat spin-offs, Mortal Kombat, the movies, the series. They've done so much from 1992 and all the controversy that it caused back in the day, from people bunking off school to go play it, from their massive queues outside that arcade machine to where we are now. So yeah, definitely big happy 25th anniversary to Mortal Kombat. Congratulations to everybody who's ever worked on every Mortal Kombat game ever. Big part of my childhood growing up. And thank you for the memories. Thank you for the reasons to. Thank you for another reason to bunk off school. Don't bunk off school, by the way. But yeah, it's been incredible over the last 25 years. So here's to another 25 years and even 25 more after that. Well done. Congratulations. Big up Mortal Kombat. And yeah, let me know what you think of Mortal Kombat. If you ever played the first games, if you're playing them now, let me know what you think of any Mortal Kombat game and some of your stories if you want to tell those. Let me know what you think about Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter, because let's be real, as good as Mortal Kombat was, Street Fighter is always gonna be better, right? Even though I'm not really playing either of them anymore, Street Fighter through and through. Let's be real. But anyway, but yeah, let me know what you think of all that. And if you like this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, finish him.